Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
KO.
Oh, Kyle said he couldn't hear. Can't hear.
Well, since you guys can hear me, that would be Kyle's problem. Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, who's that?
Hello.
That'd be Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Hello? All right,
Can you
yeah,
hear
it
me?
seems to be working now.
Excellent. Good.
You guys can hear me,
Oh.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
Sweet.
Happy Friday.
Oh yeah. I've been a mess this morning.
That's interesting. I had great plans for my morning, and then
Mhm.
I got a whole bunch of like support calls. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to wing it, at least a little bit, which is not my favorite thing to do in the world, but at least I can.
Right.
Mhm.
So, I'm digging Teams background thingy. Hello.
Yeah. I noticed that.
Yeah, I noticed that. Where is that?
I have no idea. This is the Microsoft thing. It's
It
like,
works
okay, you know, what? So I'll just like, what was I going to say? Yeah. So while I don't hate technology, I tend to approach it with some skepticism. That's why I'm like, okay, well, it's the first time I've turned the
Me too.
background.
Yeah.
Just, it's not so much like, it's a hard thing to describe. I mean, I've spent my whole career in technology. I like, obviously, when it's useful, and I find it to be useful.
Right.
My philosophy, though, is okay. It just better be useful, and that doesn't say that. Like, I mean, I know obviously I've been in this business long enough to know lots of people who just like the technology, and who are just into the technology, and it all fits. It all fits. It's just that I have found very little actually binary in the world.
Right.
Where one thing is unremittingly good and another thing is unremittingly bad. But don't start me on politics.
Yeah, let's not.
Okay. So lads, I think we had a pretty decent kickoff. I do honestly think I may need the 8 to 10 hours, but let's figure that out, right?
Mhm.
So we
Okay.
Several things I did want to talk about. So this is a team of 6 people. I'm part of the team. I know I bring kind of a particular perspective and direction, but I'm actually part of the team. One of the things that I tend to do, which can be good and bad, is drive. So I'll spot the basket and I'll want to drive to the basket. That's obviously useful because we do need to arrive at an outcome in a place, but it can also be disempowering to the team, and that's not useful, because each of you brings knowledge, perspective, yourselves to the team in ways that without that, it becomes one person, one set of ideas, just one thing. And something I think we all know in our hearts is, yeah, you may think you're smart, and you may in fact be smart, but you're not smarter than everyone else all put together.
Right.
And you might even be for a short period of time. But Jesus, that's a hard way to live.
A lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, and also, if no one is pointing out to you when you're wrong,
Right.
you can be wrong for quite a long time, and it can really be a bad outcome. So that's just again kind of my experience of team. Um, so there, right. Um, so but at the same time, obviously somebody has to step up and kind of I get to define, if you like, kind of dungeon master, get to define the parameters, but then we all get to stumble around a little bit till we get our direction. So I had an agenda. Let's talk about the agenda. Team. So we're power pals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Power Pals.
Who came up with the name?
I think
That
I
was
did.
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle. Good name. Good name.
Yeah, it's quality. I was worried
Okay.
that the sponsor was just that you would just
Yeah.
immediately dismiss us the moment that you heard our name was Power Pals.
No way. No way. So power pals, right? And like I think you guys had a chance to talk to each other since, like just kind of exchange thoughts and ideas, because you guys weren't necessarily like, this is kind of the first time you've come together as a team, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, mainly
Yeah.
for assignments we've been assigned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we had to come
Oh.
up with deliverable plans and give each other tasks. Right now we're doing like a
Yeah.
system requirements thing for the project.
This
For the
project?
past-
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Like our current assignment, so we assign tasks for each other to do like different things, like come up with non-functional requirements for the project, functional requirements for the project, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
Oh. I
So if
would
you
love
want to
to
look
see
at
that.
that, we could send information about what we're currently working on for the project. Or before this, we had to do like a project, come up with like a project plan and
Mhm.
stuff for the actual project. So before that, we did that.
Yeah.
I would like to see that, please. Because yes, I've been doing some of that as well.
Good. That's good.
But and like, where am I? Yes. So I did want to. So, do you guys have a repository for that? Those tasks and activities, like
Yeah.
a
I've
way
I've been
to
using
assign
Google
them?
Docs.
Yeah, we
Oh.
use Google Docs. I just
Yeah.
shared it with everybody so we all can like work on it whenever we can. I think the next one's due on the 13th, so we gotta come up with all that stuff by the 13th.
Okay. Well, because
Yeah.
I can help you guys with that, and I would
That'd
like
be
to.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see if I can get on Canvas here and like post like the outline he has of what like topics we're doing right now.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I'm gonna
please.
just go in there and just see if I can just copy and paste it into the chat here.
Because Jira. Have you guys ever heard of Jira?
No.
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 Jira is it's a tool. It's produced by the company called Atlassian, and there's actually two tools. There's Atlassian produces a kind of suite of tools. There's Jira and there's Confluence. And what Jira essentially is, I'm going to bring it up here. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's free if you're less than 10 people, which I like.
Mhm.
Because yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
That's pretty much the outline for the so it's called requirement specification.
Okay.
So we gotta include a title page, project summary, points of contact, introduction, and there's some subcategories underneath some of the major topics.
Excellent. Actually, this is good.
So that's what we're going to be currently working on. So we have to come up with all this stuff for the project in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Roughly.
Well, fine.
Yeah.
It's actually not that hard. Because a bunch of it will be, and this is actually a good list. I mean, just in general.
Yeah.
A bunch of it will be stuff that we can cut and paste from like Microsoft, so that
Honestly, yeah.
you know, overall description. I mean, this looks like an outline.
Yeah, actual projects. The thing we're doing next is called System Requirement Specification. So
Yeah. It's a little bit classic waterfall, but we won't hold that against it.
Yeah.
Because anyway, so let's I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Jira, right? What it is a way to organize an agile project. And I currently have one project, Burcom job component. Code has been enabled. Now link your Jira projects with your Bitbucket repository. So Bitbucket is where you store your code. Confluence is where you can do your documents, and then Jira is the tool to manage your project. And I would say a lot of corporations use Jira as their agile project management tool. Okay. So it doesn't hurt to know something about it. I will say that I am not an expert on it, just because my role with GameStop was VP, and VPs don't get to do an awful lot of actual work.
Right.
But I'll be getting into it, and I think it would be good if you guys had to think about who wanted to get to know some of it. Right. So the board is the Scrum board, and that's going to have tasks and activities, and you can see it's to do, in progress, done. So kind of as you get tasks and activities to do, you kind of add them here. You haven't started a sprint. Can you do anything on your board because you haven't started? Backlog to plan. Great. So what we do is we create tasks and activities in the backlog, right? And this is what needs to be done. And, the sprints are kind of, hey, we have this amount of time to do this kind of thing, right? And, again, it's just a way of managing. So add item, and it will tell me all the things I can do. So just to kind of show you roughly how this would function out, you guys sent a list of things that need to be accomplished.
Yeah, we already assigned each other on this list of what we're going to be doing.
Yep.
Okay.
Like I'm doing non-functional requirements 1 through 4, and also other requirements, and someone else is doing the rest of those.
Okay.
Kyle's doing number 7, so he's doing all the functional requirements for the project. And Jonathan's doing half or 2 parts of the overall description and introduction. And we already did the first 3 things in the project plan, so we're just going to copy and paste that over from that.
Okay. Good.
But pretty much 4 down is new stuff we have to do for this assignment.
And when does it have to be done by?
It's due by October 13th. So we have a Google Doc with the template set up that we're just going to edit and work on. So currently it's just a pasted template that we haven't touched yet, but it's all organized and stuff. All we have to do is just add our parts on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how much detail do you have to give in each section?
I mean, I think just enough to explain.
Yeah,
He
just
didn't
enough to
specify how
explain.
much.
Yeah. He didn't. Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, I think he has a rubric on there.
We did one of these in a previous class we had to take in order to take this capstone course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've done one of these before.
Yeah, so
Okay.
far his rubric, organization's worth 10 points, summaries worth 10 points, descriptions worth 20 points, functional requirements 30 points, and non-functional requirements is also 30 points. So functional and non-functional are the big ones on this
Yeah.
assignment.
Okay.
That's worth 60 points for just those two sections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's make sure they're good. Okay,
Yeah.
so what this amounts to is a sprint, right? Between now and the 12th, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. These are the deliverables for the sprint. And you guys have already broken down the tasks and activities related to that sprint. And
Correct.
what we would then do is
I just posted the actual rubric in there.
Okay, good. And again, that's just a way of kind of, it's a language for the organization of it. And by the
Yeah.
way, I agree with the choice of Google Docs over, say, something like Confluence. Confluence would also allow you to kind of capture your information and knowledge and share it and edit it. But it's yet another tool to learn. And if you've got a free, if you've got a tool and it's working for you, the only reason we may dabble in Confluence is so that it can appear on the resume.
True. Yeah.
If you want, I can actually share it with you too, so you can see what it looks like so far.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
'Cause
and we
again-
can just keep us sharing it with you each time we get a new project or something.
Yeah, that would be good. Because I would like to actually have some output from it as well, like development output. So it'd be good to understand the actual detail of the requirements. And I will say October 12th doesn't give a lot of time for that, but okay. But we'll see how much detail. What's after this? So that's sprint 1, right? Has he said what sprint 2 has in it? What the 2 weeks after that is?
Yeah, he has it all listed out.
Yeah, he has it all listed on Canvas right now.
Okay. That would also be very handy for me to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we made a Gantt chart for the project plan that pretty much has like it all listed so far.
Okay.
And we pretty much have to turn in that Gantt chart like after each assignment if we make any major changes to the scheduling and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have like a Excel file with that in the actual thing so far.
Could you also send that to me, please?
Yeah.
Preliminary design specification is after that.
Okay. Okay. Well, we definitely want to give him what he wants.
Yeah.
We also want to actually make sure that we're developing. Okay. Well, I don't know exactly where that fits yet, but I'd like to talk about some of the architectural decisions. Right. And I'm going to stop sharing because this is just talking. So Business Central, right, which is part of Dynamics, which is kind of Microsoft's, if you like, power platform. That's what they call it. And we don't have to make a decision here, but I would like to make the decision soon. We can, within Business Central, there's a concept called events and extension, right? Now, events they're kind of just hooks within the code, within the function that can, if this occurs, in other words, if the user says create a new invoice, or when the user says schedule a job or create a quote, right? That would be an event. You kick in an extension, which is just a code unit or a piece of code that kind of has functionality associated with it. And this is all within Business Central. That piece of code then operates on the data, right? Um, so, um, so that's, if you like, one way to go about. That's one architectural approach, and I think we're going to need it for certain things, right? So that gets to interact directly, if you like, with the system, with Business Central. Is that a little too abstract, or would somebody like to see kind of what that looks like? Or I guess I can show you well, there's videos, by the way, YouTube videos on all this. Probably noticed, like, Dynamics is very, very, it's got 110,000 customers. That's business customers. So literally millions of users. So pretty much everything that you can think of is out on the internet in a YouTube video, and usually several. Right. So I can send you links to both. Probably not all of you, because I don't think all of you are that into the coding of it, the detailed coding of it. And it sounds like you know, talk about self-organizing team, lads. You're way ahead of me. Which is great. Anyway, so an event causes the system to call an extension. That extension is a code this team would write. It can display screens. It can use, essentially, it's code called AL code.
AL.
Yeah, AL is the code, is the language, right? It's C++ like, but it's kind of a coding language for Dynamics. Well, actually,
There's like a car moving by someone's mic, and it's very loud.
I don't know, it's me. Good. Okay.
It's good now. Good now.
All right, we're good.
Okay. So definitely want to look at events and extensions, because what that does is it extends the core Business Central capability, and that's where I think some components, or maybe all the components of the development will go. So that's an architectural descent, the non-functional requirements that would probably go in there somewhere. Method of determining it. Okay. Then there is also for reporting, you can do reports directly out of Business Central, but there's also Power BI, and there's SSRS. SSRS stands for SQL Server Reporting Services, because at the back of it, BC, is a SQL Server database. And again, there's some choices to be made there in terms of how we want to structure the solution. And yeah, I think that's feasible between now and October 12th or before. The other option is Power Apps and the Common Data Layer, which is the CDL. And so what that is a completely independent application that can run on multiple platforms. I don't believe it's AL, but I don't know the language that it's developed in. But a Power App is independent. It's a little applet, a small app that can run on multiple platforms, that can then write data back to BC by ways I don't completely understand just yet. So we would really, I think, want to decide, as we kind of portion out the functionality, whether we're going to do a Power App or whether we're going to do an event and an extension. And I'd like to include Faisal in that, because he is kind of our architect, and kind of get his opinion on that. But I think, so I'll need to schedule that, I think, early middle part of next week. Just that discussion, that very specific discussion. So, okay. Just in terms of like your understanding of the architecture and the the system and how it works. What questions do you have about that? Where do you feel like you guys are in it?
What language will we be coding in?
Almost certainly AL
Yeah.
and possibly, let me just do a quick search. I don't know. Let me trying to figure out what Power Apps.
All right. I just emailed you the Gantt chart to your email.
They do some C++, but I think it'll be mostly AL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of C++.
Cool.
I did it at Colin before I transferred to UNT.
Cool.
Did it in like Visual Studios.
Yeah, and we can do the AL development in Visual Studio. So it'll be in Visual. Again, we'll get you access to that. How about any questions on Business Central or Dynamics?
Yeah.
Or how
Is there a way we can like demo it ourselves as if we're like someone using it besides just like watching YouTube videos? Is there any way for us to do that?
Yes, but I'll need to set it up for you.
Okay, that's what I figured.
All right.
So I was trying to like look around the website to see if I could do it myself, but I couldn't find it.
You can get free access, trial access, but I think it would be better if
Limited.
if we,
Yeah.
Let me. Okay. Yeah. Take note of that, and we'll get that going as well. What I would say about, again, in terms of the architecture, there's a lot of architectural diagrams for Business Central, just on the technical side. And we can get into that as well. What I would tell you is Business Central, Dynamics, NAV is where it came from. It's multi-tier, in case you care. It's a software as a service, so it sits. You can get it on-prem. I wouldn't. The key there is there's a lot of other things that sit in that part of the Azure cloud, right? And just again, if this, so as everyone knows, Azure is Microsoft's cloud offering, right?
Yeah.
Cool. You don't have to, like, I mean, as it turns out, Azure is just a collective noun for a lot of cloud things that Microsoft does. The key there about the piece of the Azure cloud that we're talking about is that it is a true cloud in the sense that you're not getting a dedicated piece of hardware that sits in somebody else's server room that they're calling cloud, because that's a BS. That's not cloud. Just absolute shite. Don't know if you guys noticed, but I put it in one of my emails. Azure AD, which is the AD stands for Active Directory. Active Directory is Microsoft's primary way of controlling access to business resources, right? So it's a whole set of tools all to itself. Used to be there was major projects, and all they were for is moving to Active Directory. It's its own thing. It's cool. Azure AD then is Active Directory in the Azure cloud, and it is kind of the main security apparatus for gaining access to Azure resources. And somebody pushed a code update to that last week and knocked Office down
Really?
4 hours for
Yikes.
the
Oh,
planet,
wow.
Ooh.
as in the whole world. So that made the news. Imagine if you're that developer.
Yikes.
Might not be a developer for long.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, and for 4 hours too. The backup
That's a
plan.
long time.
Were, I mean, yes, that is a long.
Extremely
Then
long time.
actually, there was two outages. There wasn't just the one.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but it also shows you how important Azure AD is. Um, okay. So, I think we want to mention those things in the deliverable, right? The kind of different aspects, because that's going to be part of the security. Is we're going to adopt Microsoft's SaaS security, which means that we don't have to work out a lot of the details of that, but we do have to
Nice.
have some knowledge so that we can just say, hey, by the way, it's Azure AD. We're going to have to configure and administer Azure AD. And by the way, Microsoft knocked it down last week and it was out for 4 hours.
Mhm.
I don't know what we'd all do, or anyway, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting? And what would you do if you were the IT guy standing in front of that, or we're the service provider and our customers are down for 4 hours, not because of
Yeah.
anything we did, but because Microsoft effed up. At least we'd
Yeah.
be able to say, hey, it's on CNN. You will know just as
Yeah.
soon as we do when it's back up. But it is the blessing and the curse of software as a
Of
service
these
and
things. Yeah.
cloud.
Mhm.
So there's going to be, what I'm saying is there's a lot of information out there. It's sifting through it and then cutting and pasting it into the document you have. So we have time to do it. If you have questions, definitely ping me. And, it is useful in the sense that a lot of the base capability you don't have to come up with, just cut and paste. It is always worth referencing it, though, in my opinion, because then it makes, you're placing reliance on something. It is good to understand the thing you're placing reliance on, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And what you find is that you very rarely have a greenfield, start from scratch piece of development. So this is very much a normal, yes, you have all the boxes to check, but a lot of them have been checked already, but it's still useful in a project to include them. So,
Right.
okay, enough of that. Grand. So I have two meetings to organize. One is to get you hands-on to Business Central, and the other is to have that architectural meeting. I'll leave it open to the group, but obviously if you're going to be in the technical architectural side, that's probably worth doing. I'm going to look at how you guys have organized yourselves before I make suggestions on additional ways to organize. Also, I'm going to try to use Jira just because I do think it will be useful on your resumes. But at the same time, if it's consumed, this is my whole theory too. If you're spending more time on the tool than you are on the doing that the tool is supposed to be facilitating, it's the wrong tool.
Right.
And you'd be amazed at the number of folks in an IT project that will just obsess over the tool rather than the outcome. Either way, though, I want to show you this, just to show you kind of where I'll be going. So, decision, meeting notes, product requirements, contributors. what I would ask is, could each of you please register with Atlassian and kind of with Jira, so that what I can do at least is invite you to this project, right? So I've got PowerPal, right?
Mhm.
I'd like
Okay.
to add people.
I should be in Jira already. I think that you sent an email for that, right?
Yeah, but I don't think I joined the group then.
Okay, so what is your Jira name?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
No worries. I'll tell
I
you what.
just signed up for it yesterday, and I'll see if I
Just,
can sign into that real quick.
yeah.
I think it
Just send me.
says a minute.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was saying it looks like there's other people here. It says y'all are here under details on the left.
Okay. The left.
Yeah, I think up there. Or like I'm actually like in the project and it shows who's in the project.
Okay. Because I am too.
hmm It says you're the lead or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
And why can't I see you?
Yeah, that and then on
Yeah,
the left
that's
hand
the
side.
one.
Yeah, that's what we see. This is what we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're in there, take a look at pages, right? I think we'll be
Okay, now I see it. Nice.
um, there's 8 more things we can add. Let's see what they are. Oh, I don't want to do freaking. It's going to make us anyway. We can play with this later, or I can, and then you guys can. Okay, so it's going to make us do Confluence. Well, that's annoying. It doesn't matter because it's free, right?
Okay.
And
is it like Google Docs sort of, or how does it work?
Google Docs. It's Google Docs / SharePoint. So the advantage is you can have multiple pages. You can categorize the pages in like different folders.
SharePoint.
It's searchable, and you have like different types of things you can do. And of course, it's integrated with Jira. So, from that perspective, it's not a terrible thing. In fact, it's a good thing. It's just another thing.
Yeah.
Here's the concept of sprints, right? And then you work down your tasks so that you finish the sprint. And then multiple sprints is an epic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each sprint should have things that you can validate, that are tangible, that you can take and call finished, right? That way you're getting deliverables per sprint. Usually it's code or a working component, which is something we'll start to get into the cadence of, not this sprint, but maybe the next one, especially since, and obviously there's 2 pieces to this. One, we're going to have to align to your course. So,
right. Yeah.
So, which actually, that's pretty accurate. So as much as we might want to organize differently, there is a corporate requirement here that says we can't.
Yeah, it's a lot of planning out.
So that's A, it's good to bloody know, and B, it's about accurate. That is about accurate. So, okay. But anyway, this is Jira. Definitely a tool worth getting to know. So is Confluence, just because a lot of folks are to agile development, and the main tool for agile development, at least with a lot of corporations, is Jira and Confluence. So it will look good on your resume, and it having some concept of it is also just useful, because it gives you the terms for agile, right? Mm-hmm. Like Kanban, backlog, working the backlog, your Scrum board. I'd like to get into user stories, which is a way of, so there's user stories and use cases. They're a slightly different way of going. I'll be doing user stories because I find them to be helpful. I they're a way of capturing requirements from a user perspective. Another thing that we'll have to do that I would like to do is who are our users? What are their roles? From the roles you get, as a, and then the role matters. And we'll get into that. But I want to make sure it fits to your framework and that you still have time to do it by the 12th. Right. How often are you guys meeting now, regardless?
About a week.
About once or twice a week.
Yeah, once or twice a week.
And I think that's reasonable. So let's just add me to the rotation. Let's say you guys are meeting once or twice a week, and then we're meeting, once a week or so. And then I'm a resource available to you, right? So this isn't. It has been kind of one way, but it shouldn't be. As you have questions, or either individually or collectively, you should just reach out. But then let's create. Does this time on a Friday work for you guys? Will we just make this a weekly thing?
I'm fine with this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fine with this. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that.
Right.
Make it now. Okay. Well, honestly, some of the things I wanted to show you would be redundant because you're already moving forward. Did you guys get a chance to look at that kind of Business Central basics?
That one video?
Yeah.
I watched the 53-minute long video.
So as you can see, VC is big, it's vast, because that really only scratched the surface. And the thing I completely disagree with the guy on is the no setup, right? So just because you have software as a service, and you don't have to install from the CD, does not mean, and I guess you have far fewer infrastructure questions to answer, but it's a bit like saying, well, hey, you didn't have to set up your car. True, but if you don't put gas in it and you don't put oil in it, it won't go very far. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there is an awful lot of actual setup that goes into a system. And I think we need to pay a little bit of attention to that as well, because it's the component is fine. Yeah, the other point I wanted to make is that you've got feature versus function. That was kind of feature of you can do this, and then you can do that, right?
Right.
But not really which is why I want to get into user stories. My customer comes to me with a quote or with a business problem. So and it's okay, what do? Do you bring up the quote screen to do a quote? If you do, what are you looking for to do that? This was like, this is what, this is creating, I think they did what? A sales order? They didn't even do a sales order, I think.
They did like an invoice or something.
Yeah, they went straight to invoice. But there's two pieces before that. There's a quote, and then a sales order, and then a sales invoice.
Right.
And you may not even need those, but I think in the print industry you will. So again, it's a matter of now where that gets interesting, lads. In the classic approach that your professor is asking you to take, which by the way is perfectly fine. Do not think that I in any way think it's because you need both, right? Where that gets interesting is, hey, well, we've coded, sales quote, sales order, sales invoice already exists, right? So we don't need to pay any attention to that, right? Except that, first of all, we need to be able to describe that to a user. That's thing one. Thing two is there's 127 fields in an item. Any given business probably will use 8 of them or 10 of them. right? But the problem is they won't use the same 8 or 10. So a substantial amount of the effort here, the thought effort, the value add is in deciding what the 8 or 10 fields are in that 127 that are needed for this business. And then in terms of events and extension, even though there's 127, I'll bet you any money you like that there's at least 2 that aren't in the 127. That you're like, shit. You know what I mean? And it's a matter of getting to those. And sometimes that, the formal name for that is gap analysis. So, what we're going to be doing is the business requirements rather than the functional requirements, right? What is
Right.
And yes, they sound the same, and to a certain extent they are, but they're also not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what, and that's where I think that the user stories gets in. And yes, you do get to detail, right? And that's too how we'll end up with kind of stuff we can demo that says, well, here's the generic huge piece of functionality that Microsoft has spent hundreds of millions on that no one can actually use. And then here's the specific piece of functionality that's tailored to the need of the user that they can go, oh, I'll pay for that. I'll pay for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a very different way of thinking than classic software development thinking, which says I start with a white sheet of paper,
Right.
I develop a piece of functionality, and then I hand it to the user. What you're starting with is
something already made.
Is this? You see that?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to get to something simple that the user can use. Big difference. And then making small changes to make it work. So again, that doesn't mean though that you shouldn't capture the overall need, but a lot of it is cutting and pasting of existing kind of documentation and functionality, and then highlighting the specific. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
Good. So hopefully that'll inform some of the thinking and the doing of the structure that you have over the next couple of weeks, right? Is if you're inventing a brand new piece, pause and see if you can just cut and paste it from somewhere already. But it could genuinely be a brand new piece, but that's unlikely at this phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure the professor knows that.
Good. I'm sure he's a very smart guy.
Yeah, he probably just wanted us to know how to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that he's right about the structure, and it, it's not, none of this is a bad idea. Absolutely none of it. And you're going to fill out the pieces, just not maybe in the exact way that you might think.
Right.
Okay. Let me just look at the agenda. Talk a bit about next week. Breaking up the work, you've already done that. Cadence for scrums. I'm going to say we'll match it sounds like every 2 to 3 weeks you have a set of deliverables. Is that how
Roughly.
that's going?
Yeah.
It seems like it, yeah.
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 And I would say that's good. That's good cadence. I've talked about breaking up the work. I think you guys have already done that, at least for this
For the system requirements.
Yeah, for a little bit so far.
Yeah. Good, by the way. I don't know. We'll break the work up further as it forms more. Again, that's fine. This would be called a Scrum, except a Scrum is usually a stand-up meeting in which you review tasks and activities. Given the number of hours that you guys have to commit to this, we're going to have to modify the Scrum. Usually a Scrum is a 10 to 15 minute meeting, stand-up, daily, to review progress on tasks and activities. Um, I don't think that's going to work. Um, just because of the actual cadence of this project effort. When is it all supposed to be done, by the way?
Next year.
Well,
In
that could
like
be
I
next
think
January,
Yeah,
I
the
think I think
first
next March.
March.
yeah, first semester is just like getting it all planned out, get everything set up, and then the second semester, which is spring, is just building, pretty much just building a project on what we had from the previous semester. But he said we can
Yeah.
like start building it this semester if we want to and stuff, and like get ahead, so the second semester isn't like as tough. So
Good. Well,
I
good.
know.
Because
yeah.
honestly, we're not. No, no. I don't need a whole bloody semester to plan what I'm going to do. We're going to
Right.
do. We're going to do. We're going to do.
Mhm.
Again, everybody's going to be different, and it's good that it sounds like the professor is going to be flexible. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He has been.
it's definitely close.
So we could get into. I think we will do this, right? We will do this because I do think it has some value and merit. We'll possibly probably break the work down into user stories, right? And and you by all means Google user stories. All right, who's familiar with the concept of user stories?
Just
Anyone?
the basics of it. Just learning about it in one of our previous classes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I remember.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I'll tell you so everybody has their own opinion about what a user story is. And I have seen two developers spend a week and a half discussing less and less amiably about what a proper user story should be. Um, um, what it is to me is very it's a complete piece of a business process. So as a user, I want to, and then it's a from beginning to end. And then what that allows you to do is create something, that may or may not have a piece of code in it, but will certainly have some changes, has some business insight, and has some validation. And the way that I structured that, obviously, with my groups, was that a pod of somebody doing validation, somebody doing development, and somebody doing the business analysis would work together on a business user story for the sprint. And usually a sprint would have several business user stories, so that at the end of the sprint, you would have a demoable piece of functionality that had been designed, developed, and QA'd and was deliverable in the framework of the piece of development. Does that make sense? So ideally, you want to break down your work into business user stories, because those are things that end users can relate to and that multiple people can participate in during the sprint being 2 to 3 weeks, that ends up then being demoable to the user or to the stakeholder when it's finished, right? That's a user story. And each user story then has a certain weight, a certain level of complexity and of challenge, right? And usually in a sprint planning, what happens is, so first of all, the user stories go into the backlog, right? So you break your stuff down into multiple user stories. That goes into the backlog. There's a thing called backlog grooming, which is where us, or one or more people go in, and usually the product owner, and groom the backlog. In other words, make sure that those user stories make sense, that they fit together, kind of prioritizes them in terms of their business priority. In other words, I really want this one, and this is more important than that one, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like us to do that together so that you get a feel for it, right? So you do your backlog grooming. Then you have a sprint planning, which says, okay, in the order of their business priority, we're all, as a team, going to look at these user stories and give them a weight, give them a, well, that one's pretty bloody hard. So let's give this and it's a Fibonacci number for the math nerds. I'm going to give this a Fibonacci number. It's 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. I can't
13.
remember. I'm not. There you go. 13. Somebody knows the Fibonacci. Okay.
Currently in the team's
And what that is the number of story points, right? And what we agree as a team is this represents a 1, a really simple, the simplest thing that you can do, right? And then we kind of get a feel for what's a 1, what's a 2, what's a 3, blah, blah, blah. And then that gives us a certain expectation of how many user stories, how many things we can accomplish in a sprint, right? And then each sprint, we're trying to meet that commitment as a team. So as a team, we say we can collectively accomplish this number of user stories. And then once we do that, right, usually you have a kind of sprint review. It's called something or other. I can't remember what it's called. It'll come to me. In which you go, okay, well, we didn't quite make it, or we did, or we didn't, and you voted into the sprint and out of the sprint, right? But you try to keep things within that 2 to 3 week period fixed, right? So that you don't have it's not a continuous work stream. It's more of a burst and sprint of activity that has closure and has an opportunity for review, and then has another kickoff and then another sprint. So we'll be getting into sprints. Or I find that a very productive way to do IT, right? And that is Agile. I'm using Agile because fuck it, everybody has their own opinion of that too. But what we're doing at the moment is perfectly fine, which is more that's more of the theoretical framework of what we're doing at the moment is kind of an epic, and it's more SAFE, which is secure agile for the enterprise. In case anybody wants.
Yeah.
Anyone else care about SAFE? You will. All this shit needs to go on your resumes, lads, so that you get the cool job.
Yeah, I know.
Right, but we'll actually be doing it all, so that when you do get to the interview, you'll be able to talk about it. And the reason that we're doing it isn't for resume. It's actually, if you do it right, a really productive way for a team to do IT development, right? And I would like us to do it because I am very interested in the outcome of this project, because I want to sell it. I want to sell it with this friend of mine, Faisal. And then, let's see how we all do. Okay, I am right on the 30 minutes. I have actually talked about about the concept of velocity. We got to talk very briefly about tools and architecture, but we're going to have some follow-ups. Mm-hmm. So in terms of next meetings, we're going to have the Friday meeting. It's going to be for an hour. I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, right? And hopefully, I really like the interaction, guys. I know some folks are more shy on the phone than others. Don't worry about it, and I won't call you out unless I feel like it. You guys are off to a great start. I do think this is going to be a very interesting project. Obviously, I wouldn't if I didn't. I would spend time on it. So good. We've also agreed there's 2 additional meetings. One is with Faisal with the architectural discussion, and the other probably involves Faisal and or myself and or someone else on the whole just hands-on Business Central. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to take the information that you guys have given me, assimilate it, and provide feedback on it. And then, so we may, I already know what next Friday is going to have. And then if you collectively or individually want to meet, to talk, to email, my commitment is I'll make the time to do that. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've created a Jira account as well just now.
So everybody try to Jira account. and see if you can join that project, that team. Um, and I'm going to stumble through Jira because, as I mentioned, I had at least two guys who reported. I need to reach back out to those guys and say, okay, give me the Jira tutorial. It is pretty the whole point of it. So the way Jira got its stake was it is free for people under 10 users. What they did is they got a whole bunch of people to use it and then sell it back into the corporation. So
Okay.
fairly intuitive, or at least it should be. And then if you're ever wondering about kind of entrepreneurial spirit and the fact of global systems, the guy who started Atlassian is Australian. His dad was an IBM executive, and it's a very interesting story. Okay, I am over my time. Any questions? Anything you want to bring up? Anything we should have discussed we didn't?
Well,
I think we're good.
Yeah, I shared the
Yeah.
Google Doc to your email. I'm not sure if it'll work without the Google email, but I shared it with the email you have.
Don't worry, I've got a Google email too, so and you're right, it won't.
Okay.
But I've got it. It's ianmokc@gmail.com. Good. Okay. It's great to see you guys are ahead of the game. So let's see if we can keep up that momentum. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Listen, have a great Friday, and you know, don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or if you're kind of being blocked in a line of inquiry. We all own each other's successes. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank
Cool.
you, Ian.
Cheers, guys. Have a good
All right.
one.
Have a
Bye.
good
You
one,
too.
y'all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.